Hello, this is Mike Live, and this is our second video on Flash Builder Jiglib soccer field. And so last time what we did was we set up our code, and now we're ready to start working with the field itself. And before we do that, I want to give you a little bit of 101 Photoshop, just a little bit, because it's so important. I mean, you can do all this coding, it can just be dynamic, but unless it's got nice graphics. But it's the nice graphics that draw on the attention. Now, the best Photoshop tutorials I've ever seen on the web are on lynda.com. So www.lynda.com, $25 a month. You can watch all the videos you want, and I highly suggest that you become a Photoshop expert along with your programming. So we're going to take our soccer field that we saw last time we grabbed from the web, and here's right here. I'm just going to right-click on it and go Open with Photoshop. And just a little bit of Photoshop 101, not much here, but just enough to, let me show you how to change this image. So here's Photoshop, and here's my tool size, and here's my image, and here's these nice little adjustment tools. And if you can't get to those, just go to Window and go to Adjustments, and it'll take you right there, and Brushes, and we'll look at those as well. So what I want to do here is I don't like the color here of this particular screen, and I want to be working in layers as well. So let's go to Windows, and let's click on Layers. It's already open, so let me bring my Layers panel up so you can see that. And I'll have to say, I learned Photoshop from the designers that I was actually working with. I'm going to come in here and just drag right here and make another copy, and just drag that locked version to the trash can. You can have multiple copies if you want, and you like to do that because you don't want to lose what you have. So now I have a layer that I can work with. Not going to do a whole lot with that today, but you're going to be working with masking and multiple layers. It's just wonderful stuff in Photoshop. All goodness. And right here I'm going to hit this little line tool, and I just love this because it allows me to adjust very rapidly, visually, the way this looks. Now, it's kind of dark for me, so I want to brighten it up a little bit. So I just bring my curve a little bit. Look at that. I could do lots of things. Like I could lock that in there, and I could bring this down and make it, just change that, make it neon looking. But I just wanted to brighten it up a little bit. And now, let me just give you a little trick in Photoshop, and that is to Control-Alt-Z. Now, if you hit Control-Z, you can only go back one time in Photoshop. It's terrible. But no, just hit Control-Alt-Z, and you can go back as many times as you want. So at this point, let's go ahead and bring up our Layers panel right here and make sure that our layer is selected. So we've selected our layer, and I'm just going to paint a few leaves on there. I got this leaf brush selected, and I want to show you a trick here, though, with this particular leaf brush. So I selected a leaf brush. If you use the bracket, the left bracket, you can make it small, and the right bracket will make it larger. Isn't that cool? And I'm just going to paint a few leaves on this course. Hey, man, we were sloppy. We didn't clean up this week, okay? So I just got a few leaves on the course, okay? And so you can decorate however you'd like. And that's pretty much all I really want to show about Photoshop. Just 101, you can go in, do a little bit of work. I mean, not a whole lot. You can actually make your images very beautiful and very dynamic, and that's what people see with their eyes. And that's what you're going to sell your product. So let's go ahead and save this, and we'll use this in our application. I like to save for the web, so I'm going to go save for web. We're going to make this JPEG because the JPEG will be a lot smaller. Okay, so we'll save this as a JPEG. Let's go down and show that to you. And I'm just going to go ahead and save this for the web. And I'll just call it Field Leaves because I know I got leaves on it. Hit save. And now you have a nice little image that we're actually going to use for our program. So let's bring back Flash Builder. So now I actually want to put this in my Jiglib project, so let's go ahead and do that. And that is actually fairly simple to do. We're going to go down to the bottom of the code, and we're going to look at materials. In the bottom of my code, you remember I had this create ground. And what I want to do, I don't want a wireframe anymore. I actually want a material. So I actually keep the same name. And so what do? I want a bitmap material. So I'm going to come along here, and I want to go, what's your best friend when it comes to bringing in materials? Bitmap, and all this code hinting is great. So use your code hinting. And you want to go a bitmap file material. And that's the one you want to use. And we'll go ahead and we just copy and paste it right here. Control C, Control V. And then just put the address of the material. So we see it's in Assets. We see it's in Assets, Images, and it's called Soccer Field Leaves. So let's go ahead and put that in there. So we're going to go just a double quotes, and this is all you need to do to bring your material in. Assets, Images, and that was called Soccer Field Leaves.jpg. And this is where I make my biggest mistakes. I spell things wrong. And at that point, let's run the program and let's see if we got it in there. And so there it is, but you can look, it's really skewed. It looks terrible. Look at that. That's not a nice looking field. That's not my dream field of soccer. Let's fix it. And so now we can start hacking a little bit and make things okay. So what we want to do here is come along here and say, well, where is the problem? I don't know. but it must have something to do with this ground class right here, this body rigid. That's where everything's going into. You know, you just look where things are going. This bitmap is called MAT is put here into create ground in the physics folder. So let's go ahead and do a few things here. Let's go ahead and just hold my control key, roll over create ground, and see where that is. So here's the method that actually is firing and running this. And I can see the problem already. Let me show you real quick here. What's happening here is that you're using the paper vision plane, but you're just giving it a size. You're not actually changing its segments. So the default segment is really small. Let's hit our control key, roll over there, go to paper vision, and see what the default segments are set at. They're set at 0, 0. You're only going to get 2 little bits in there. You want to increase that. So we actually want to hack this so we can actually increase the segments so our plane looks better. So let's go back. And I'm going to do a really cool trick here. I'm going to highlight this code and make a new public method so I can actually call it a different name. So I'll hit the Control-Alt key at the same time, highlight your code, hit the Control-Alt key at the same time, and just page it down. And you've got a whole new section of code that you can start hacking. Let's create a new name we'll call soccer. Create soccer ground. And then all we need to do is put in some new pieces in here. So we can put an X and a Y. So let's put a width in here. There we go. Let's put a height in here. So we can actually control everything, you know. We're not stuck by what's already in there. Let's put a segment in there. So we'll segment 1. Well, that's a number. And let's put another segment in there. Segment 2. And these are basically width and height segments and hit number. Now if I'm not sure what I'm putting in there, once again go to the plane, backspace, put a parenthesis in there, and it brings up all the code hinting. So we see what I'm actually working with here is the material, the width, the height, and the width segments, and the other one is the height segment. So just by clicking on that, using those code hinting, you can rapidly code and Flash Builder without actually having to run to the manual every time. So now I have to bring these things over here, these new names. So one is a width, and lots of times I like to copy and paste my names because I make spelling errors and it's worth it. So I just copy and paste names. The other is a height. Then my segment numbers, which we called seg 1 and seg 2, and that's all I need for that. And then the actual level is actually used in another part of the code. So we've actually done it. That was the hack. I mean, this is going to make my code look wonderful. So let's go ahead and save that. Go back to the original project and just make a few changes. So now I want to use the actual dimensions of the image itself and actually put my segments in there. And it's no longer create ground, is it? It's actually create soccer field. How do I know that? Well, once again, let's use our dot syntax. So let's just hit a dot, create, and there, look at that, soccer ground. It's there. Just double click on it, and that's my new code. Woohoo! This is getting pretty easy. And now I need to look at the dimensions of my image, and I need to give it some segments. So I know there's going to be a dimension here. So how do I get the dimensions? One way is to go back to Photoshop and take a look. Let's do that. So I'm in Photoshop, so if I go to image, and I go to image size, I can see this image is 500 by 1000 pixels. So let's go ahead and put that in there, width and height, so cancel that. So it's width 500, let's put that in. And height was 1000. And I just know from experience that 8 or a 16 is going to give me a pretty good looking setup, so I put 16 in there. And then I let my level be 0. So I actually have followed that, and you can see the code hinting once again is appearing. So if I forget what I typed in, once again all I have to do is hit that little parenthesis. The code hinting comes up and shows me what needs to be put into that method. So see how Flash Builder really does help you accelerate your code building. Let's go up to the top and make sure we got the right method, because now we've got to change this name from create ground. Let's call it create soccer ground just so we know it's a different method. And I'm just going to go ahead and change that name at the top and call that, and let's see what our ground looks like now. And from so the way this works is this code runs, the class is declared, and the first thing that runs is the constructor function. And in the constructor function right here we are calling create ground. We want to now call it create soccer ground. Make sure we have our parentheses. And now let's run our program, save it, see if there's any errors. I don't see any errors. And let's see if we get a cool looking ground. And there we are. It is beautiful. No sagging. We got a nice little court that we can now play around with in 3D. Oh well, thanks for listening. This was Mike Lively, and you got a little bit of Photoshop today, and you got a little bit of hacking, and that makes me really happy. See you next time.